Western civilization.
Probably the smart thing to do.
You're good to go.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I call this committee on MDC government special meeting to order. Today is January 6th, Monday, January 6th. My name
There's no
is
sound.
John Bazzano. I'll be chairing this meeting. Is there anyone here from the public who wishes to comment on agenda items, relative to items on the agenda?
Here, if I may, Mr. Chairman,
sure.
Chris Stone is having some audio difficulties. Is there anyone else on the
Oh, no.
WebEx that can hear us?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now, John?
Yes, we can hear you, Chris.
Okay,
Can
fine.
you-
I couldn't hear you.
I
because
can
there's a
hear.
There's a button on my computer that's called volume. It was on
Goes a
zero.
long way.
Just so we're clear, it's on zero.
Goes a long way.
That was 30 years old.
All right, so item number 2, is there anyone here from the public who wishes to make comments relative to agenda items? Anyone? Okay, hearing none, then we'll move on to item number 3, which is approval of the meeting minutes of December 4th. Do I have a motion? Commissioner Torres, yes.
I guess, yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes with a correction.
Okay. What's the correction?
Correction is, I was in attendance at the last meeting.
You were. That's correct.
Okay, I'll make that correction.
Okay, so I have a motion from Commissioner Torres. Do I have a second? Second? Second from Commissioner Healy. Okay, all in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. Any abstentions? Motion passes. Item number 4 is the consideration and potential action regarding the appointment of our 2025 legislative consultants. Mr. District Counsel, you want to take this one up?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Happy New Year to everyone. I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person. What is before you is a resolution or proposed resolution that would retain our existing, our 2004 legislative lobbying team, namely Gaffney, Bennett and Associates, Strategic Outreach Solutions, and Levin Polino Christ Government Relations as our state lobbyists, and also retain Squire Patton Boggs and SJB Strategies on the federal level as our federal lobbyists. What's within the body of the agenda item, it sets forth the annual fees for each of the legislative consultants. They remain at the same level they were in 2024. Each of the consultants have signed on to those fees and to being retained for the next year. I will tell you that this is in large part the same team, certainly the same team we had in 2024, but also historically the same team that has led us in the legislature at the state level and in Congress. And they've been very effective, both in terms of securing funds for MDC's capital improvement projects, and in particular, more recently, obtaining passage at the federal level of the WRDA bill, which included our amendment relating to the Colebrook River Reservoir. That was passed by both houses of Congress on December 26th and was just signed by the president this past Saturday evening. So that is now the law of the land. So a lot of good work went into that effort, and not least of which is Steve Bonafonte and Bill Schuster at Patton Boggs were instrumental, not just in getting the amendment added to the WRDA bill, but doing a painstaking effort to get this passed in both the Senate and the House, and ultimately getting it signed by President Biden. So great work by them, and their efforts are certainly appreciated. It's a very important piece of legislation for us, and allows us to move forward with our what in effect will be an agreement with the Army Corps of Engineers to remove us from our obligations under the Colebrook River Reservoir Agreement. With that, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions. I can't see, but I'm assuming that all of the lobbyists are there if you have any questions of them. If you bear with me, and again, I only see your view, or my view of you, Mr. Chairman, but I would ask that each of the lobbyists stand up and be recognized. First of all, I see Brendan Fox. Brendan, just stand up and say hello. Steve Bonafonte. I believe Janice Fleming is there as well,
Here, yeah.
and Michael Christ. Thank you all for showing up, and coming by and offering to say a few words if you'd like, or if you like, it would answer any questions that the committee might have. Please do so. Steve, is Bill Schuster on the line? Do you know?
Bill's not on the line, but he's in Washington, D.C. As you may have heard, he's about 8 inches of snow, and they had the
Yeah.
certification vote today. But I did speak to him early today, and he's eager to come back before and answer any questions,
Great.
and appreciates his confidence.
Great. Thank you, Steve, and thanks for reaching out to him. Whether they receive a dusting of snow or 10 inches of snow in Washington, D.C., the city shuts down. So I know that from personal experience, as does Steve. So with that, Mr. Chairman, thank you for the committee's consideration. I wholeheartedly support the individuals that are in front of you and the firms that they represent as continuing their excellent representation of the MDC at both the state and federal level.
Thank you. Yeah, I've had the pleasure of working with Steve and Brendan and others, Janice as well. And I can speak to them in the highest regards. Fantastic job in the past here and in other situations that I'd had to deal with. So for the purposes of discussion, if we'd like, I'd like to make a motion to move this item favorably to the full body. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Thank you. All opposed, no abstentions. Any discussion on this? Any questions or anything that we have? I think the questions were answered. Good? Okay. Next item is item number 5. Thank you for being here, by the way. Thank you very much. Item number 5 is our 2025 legislative initiatives. I'll turn this over again to our district council. He can't hear me, probably. He can't hear me.
One more time, Mr. Chairman, please.
Item number 5 is just a discussion of the 2025 legislative initiatives.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'm sorry, I was distracted.
No worries.
We have a couple of different items that we are batting around and may propose to the legislature. Obviously, we'll be back in front of this board before we do that. But one of those relates to, and it's kind of more of a timing issue than anything else. Back in 2000, I think it was 2016, the legislature passed a special act that required the MDC, and we supported it, by the way, but required the MDC to submit certain financial information to various committees of cognizance in the legislature and to the state auditors as well, and the state controller. And we've done that consistently over the past 7 or 8 years. It's our deadline is January 1. We've had a hard time meeting that January deadline. The receiving bodies understand that because we don't work off a fiscal year like as the state does. It's not October 1 to September 30th. It's January 1 to the end of December. Our audits aren't completed or we're not able to complete our audits by January 1st of each year. There's obviously some time after the end of the fiscal year, December 31st of each year, to prepare those audits. We're probably going to ask, and it's up for discussion here, of course, that date be extended or changed from a reporting time of January 1 to a reporting time of July 1 of each year. We don't anticipate a lot of pushback from the legislature, but there may also have to be other considerations because the committees of cognizance, in particular the Planning and Development Committee, have to report back to the full legislature in the event there's any issues relating to our audit. So obviously, in July of each year, they're not in session. So the date for them to report may have to be extended to the ensuing legislative session of the General Assembly. Under the present law, they have 30 days to submit their report. So we obviously want to be cognizant of their obligation and their likely need to get their date extended as well. The second one, which we're still dealing with some language on, relates to under our present charter, in order for a town to become a member of the MDC, aside from needing the approvals of the board, and in some cases a referendum of our member towns, they also have to be contiguous to an existing MDC member town. That's a rather antiquated requirement, only because we now have, since mid-1980s, exclusive service areas, which have been established through legislative fiat and through the work of the DPH, where each one of the major water companies has an area. We're in the central Connecticut area, have defined exclusive service areas. Many of the towns that are listed in our exclusive service areas under the 1980s legislative enactment do not abut an existing MDC member town. So there's some conflict between what might be available to those towns that might be able to join the MDC under the exclusive service area regulations versus those who would be able to join under our charter. So we're still working on some language on that. We'll report back to you. And it's obviously something that the board will have to decide whether they want to even move forward with that piece of legislation. But that's the other thing we're looking at. We're also keeping a close eye on available funding for the MDC and its projects. I know we were very successful with both our legislative help and our administrative help in securing funds from the legislature for our integrated plan and the extensive accelerated work that we're doing in the north end of Hartford. All good things. That money certainly was appreciated, but it doesn't happen just because. It happens because we've got good people lobbying for us, and we've got excellent staff, both in the engineering and the administration, that move forward and work to get those monies. So those are the three things that we're going to at least initially embark upon. But we're open to anything that makes sense for you as a committee and to the full board.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion on that? Any questions on our 2025 legislative initiatives? No vote on that, right? There's no- nothing. Okay. Well, then Commissioner DeBella.
I thought the charter says, or the statute says it's 20-mile radius of Hartford. Is not that the
That's a 20-mile radius of where we can provide water,
by water?
not become a member town.
Well, anyone that's contiguous to that 20 mile.
No, right. There's a distinction between the area in which we can provide water services and the area within which we can add another member town to the MDC.
Oh, I
So,
see.
for example,
That's not a
when we went-
20-mile radius, I understand.
20-mile radius is just where we can serve water, provided we're not in competition with another water company.
Yeah.
And if you recall the Yukon example,
Yeah.
The 20-mile radii just
touched the town.
a very small portion of Mansfield, but because it touched a small portion of Mansfield, we could have served the entire town, and certainly could have served the University of Connecticut, but that would have been in competition with the Connecticut Water Company, and Connecticut Water Company has that contract even as of today, I believe. So, but that's the distinction.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Moving on to item number 6, an opportunity for the general public to make comments. Anyone in the public? Must be a new year. Great. Okay, moving on to commissioners' requests for future agenda items. Okay. Hearing none, no further business. This meeting is adjourned.